Hi everybody, it's David Fleming here from the Toronto Realty Group, and welcome back to this week's Pick 5. Do you live in a detached home? Did you come from a semi? Was it the most important thing in your search when you were looking to move up? I'm in a semi, I have to get into a detached. Are you in a semi right now? Do you dream of or care about at all getting into a detached home? Do you have an unbelievably gorgeous Edwardian or Victorian semi and you absolutely do not care that you share a wall? In today's Pick 5, I want to look at what I call substantial semis. Some of the prettiest houses that I see listed on MLS are, egad, semi-detached. And I feel as though in Toronto, we have this sort of idea that detached is automatically better than semi. It is king. I might say that when you look around the world, people rent everywhere. And here in Toronto, oh no, there's this rental stigma you have to own. By the same token, some of the most beautiful houses, think of some villa in Italy or one of those little cobblestone paths, excuse me, I'm not very well traveled, where every single house is attached. And yet they could be the most gorgeous thing you've ever seen and cost a pretty penny. So does it really matter if your home is attached at a wall in between you and your neighbor? Today, I want to look at 5 semi-detached houses throughout the central core, and I'll show you my map here. There are semis all throughout the city of Toronto. Now, on the east side, for example, in Leslieville, yes, you've got your little semis, your 3-bed, 2 baths. Today, I want to look at what I said it was substantial semis. I want to try to look for things that are at least 4 bedrooms, that are maybe on 25 to 30 foot lots. You think about the Annex, you think about Summerhill, you could go out to Roncesvalles, Little Italy. There are semis all throughout the city of Toronto. Let's start with our very first one here on 51 Chicora, no one knows how to pronounce it. I put it in my video a few years ago. That was funny, that's on Instagram. We'll call it 51 Chicora Avenue. Now, this is a substantial semi. This house was built in 1900 and it is a beautiful Edwardian. It is red brick, but it needs a ton of work. This is a classic estate sale situation. It says in the listing, first time, oh no, not first time for sale. It says built in 1900 and has been occupied by the current family since 1952. Wow. My dad was born in 47. Okay, 52. Getting my frame of reference. So over 70 years, I'm obsessed with history. I'm thinking back to 1952. What was the family like in there? Is this multi-generational? Has been passed down over the years? What an incredible find. But of course, when we look at the photos, you will see that yes, it is going to need a little bit of work. Now, beautiful red brick, as I mentioned, semi-detached, 2.5 story, has parking. Pay attention to that. A lot of the semi-detached houses in Toronto don't have parking. But then again, if a house was built in 1898, you weren't really thinking about putting a car in there, were you? Horse and buggy. Now it's a 24 by 119. That is wide for a semi 5-bed, 3-bath. Let's take a look at the photos. When I mentioned substantial semis and I said we're gonna look at some beautiful houses, I wanted to start here because this is a fantastic reno candidate. See the width of this? I'm looking at this right now and I'm saying, compare this to something that is, again, I go back to the Leslieville example, your typical 15, 18, maybe even 20 feet. I had a listing on Gillard that was 20 feet, and in the marketing I said wider than most. What I mean is in the area where the semis are 16 to 19 feet. Here you're looking at 24, and from the position that this photo was taken, it looks massive. Now everything's beautiful on the outside. When we get on the inside, you can see, okay, pretty typical, right? Same family since 1952, but you have original finishes here, your stained glass. This is original newel post and railing, but it's all carpeted. You're gonna have like, my favorite is one of the telephone wires that's been painted over like 47 times, and like, who has the home phone? We're not very far from kids not even knowing what the home phone is. I think one day I'm gonna bring home one of those rotary dial phones and ask my daughter to dial on it. So inside the house, see all these original freestanding walls? Now, I wanna go back here and take a look. This is the entranceway. Then we've got a bedroom. So this was duplexed. And some of these walls are original and some of them aren't. But when you see, here's where I got distracted by myself for a change. When you see something like this, you start to say, I want this all open concept. Now I can see, looks like a fire extinguisher back here. Of course, as I mentioned, it was a duplex, but you're gonna want this house to be completely opened up. And now you see, okay, yes, everything must go. The flooring, the walls, there's a lot of plaster in here. But because it's a duplex, you're gonna have to change the configuration of this. So this is effectively a shell. And you say to yourself, is it gonna cost me what, $800,000 to do the reno that I want in here? I mean, here's an addition off the back and it's just plywood, so we don't even know if this is heated. But I go back to the red brick at the front. You can see by the fire escape, yeah, this was used as multi-unit. So this thing here, you'd probably end up ripping off. You don't need to do a 3-story reno. To excavate for the basement and do a 1, 2, actually here would be a 4-story reno, you're probably $1.2 million to $1.5 million. I know that sounds like a lot, but you're gutting the entire house and doing a 3-story reno. So I don't know that paying, what, $2.2 million and you go spend $1.5 million, I don't know. Yeah, I think you could do a $4 million house on the street. I actually sold to clients years ago, I think for about 3.3, absolutely gorgeous house. What does the market hold for a house on this street that is fully renovated? So yeah, I think you could do upwards of 4 million. But then if you had a $4 million house, would you say I want it attached? See, I got you there. So we're in this area because we want to be in an offshoot of Yorkville. And I'm gonna skip through these photos because as I mentioned, this is not the nicest house that needs a reno. We're in an offshoot of Yorkville. I'll go to the map. We have a beautiful, see this here? Okay, so this is, Pears Avenue, Yorkville. You're just in this little offshoot near Davenport. And you've got this beautiful red brick Edwardian. And there's your 2-car parking at the back. Is this where you want to plant your flag? So some people are going to say for $4 million, I could buy one of the nicest new builds in Leaside. But where are you here? A lot of folks, and I'm going to typecast again, I've sold to a lot of American clients over the last 2 years that look at something like this, excuse me, I'm going to zoom out, and they say, well, if here's my downtown core, and then, Midtown's up here, this is where I want to plant my flag. So I don't want to be in Rosedale, either I don't have the budget or I don't love the demographic there. True story. I had a guy come, he could have bought whatever he wanted. I described all the different areas. He said, that's not where we're going to be. Had the money to do it, but wanted to be, I won't say where they ended up buying, but ironically bought a ridiculously expensive semi. So I think for the person that wants to plant their flag here, they want to be more centrally located. They're coming from another big city where they feel like a Leaside or a Moore Park or a Bedford Park or a Wanless Park is just too suburbia. This to me is a fantastic project, but it is a project. Okay, so the next one we're gonna look at, I absolutely love this house. This was a house that I saw that made me say, in today's pick 5, I wanna look at semis. Now the interesting thing about this one here on Garnock is that these folks have not been there that long. I'll come back to it at the end. But they've only been there a couple of years, so here we go. This is a 1913 built, you can see it right there. It is an Edwardian, it's an 18.5 by 105. Has 1.5 car parking, so when you saw a car in half, you can put half of that car in the other spot. 4 bed plus 1 5 bath, 3-story. This is the quintessential Garnock. I absolutely love the look of this, and I do remember when it sold a couple of years ago. Now on the inside, I believe this is one of the staging penguins. We'll come back to that. Staging penguins. On the inside, so love the covered front porch. It's absolutely beautiful. And then on the inside, pretty typical living. Opening to the dining where we have the staging penguins. There we go. See these guys? Staging penguins. And then the kitchen. So it doesn't feel like a massive house. And you might say they're at 2.4 million. I think it's going to sell for more. And it's just a semi. But it's 3 stories plus basement. This is vertical living. And you've got to compare and contrast different real estate styles of homes based on the age, based on the location, and say that I understand that this is not my typical 2-story on a wider lot. Here I'm going vertical. They've made incredible do with what they've got, excuse me, from whether it's the kitchen, whether it's things like storage space. We've crammed, I don't want to say crammed, excuse me, we've been able to accommodate a powder room, which we would not have had originally in this floor plan. But when these houses were built, this could have been a 6-bedroom, 1-bathroom in the year 1913, where John and Jane Smith stored coal in the basement and jarred pickles and such, and now you're digging out a basement and underpinning it. You've got this ridiculous bathroom upstairs, which back then had a pine floor and a roof if you're lucky. So they did an unbelievable job on this reno, or I should say the owners 2 years ago, because I believe these guys just bought. That's an interesting piece from a staging standpoint. Doesn't really go, but I assume that's their bed and they did not want to take it apart and get rid of it. I don't blame them. So 4 beds, 5 baths, as mentioned. Unbelievable house. Not starter home in Riverdale, right? This is probably move up. So here's my question, guys. You're in a 3-bed, 2-bath semi. It's worth $1.3 million. Are you going to drop $2.5 million on just a semi? It's a 4-bed, 5-bath. It's absolutely gorgeous. It is 4 stories, including basement. They've done the excavation and renovated and put the addition on the basement. It has parking for 1.5 cars, as we noted. It has a backyard. Look at the walkout to the backyard here. This is amazing. See, there's their bump out. That's fantastic. They've got the deck up here. This is one of the prettiest houses I've seen to come out in Riverdale this year. There was one that was on, I want to say Riverdale, not too far from where my brother used to live. And that came out, I think, in February. That was one of my favorite houses. There was one on, sorry, I'm just ranting right now, really close to Danforth, beautiful house, super narrow, but in a design magazine. And then this one, right? There's only so many houses that are this good. And you can see the car in the driveway. Is that an electric car charger? There's your 1.5 car. There's only so many houses that are this good, and that's why they stand out in my mind. Absolutely gorgeous in every single way. Beautiful. Look at this. Look at that garage. Guys, men are so pathetic. They get excited about things like garages. You got this beautiful house, and I'm gushing about a garage. God, look at those storage bins. But seriously, how much does this garage cost to build? They've done it all. Now, I want to scroll down, and I want to show you, okay? Here we go. Okay. So we bought this house for 2.2 in 2020 in November. So it was sort of during pandemic, and we've been there for 5 years, right? And now we're listed at 2.4 with an offer date. So there is a huge appetite for a house like this. I do expect they can get their money out and then some. One of the nicest semi-detached houses you will ever find in Riverdale. Next one here is at 43 Rusholme Road. Chris and I just sold 378 Rusholme. Okay, maybe that's why I was attracted to it. Now this is a reno, and I want to go down to this is the one I mentioned that they had sort of just bought. Nope. Okay, let me look at the listing history here to begin with. So I believe they bought this in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. They paid $2,128,000. So does our listing history go that far back? So they bought privately, so it doesn't show on here. Paid $2,180,000. And then look at the listing history here, folks. $3.25 million in 2022. 3.25, 3.225. Okay, they leased it. 3.18, 3.18, 2899, and now they're at 2699. So 2699 sounds like an absolute steal, and to be perfectly honest, it is. Based on what they paid and what they've put into it, it is an absolutely beautiful semi. Now, does not have parking. I mentioned with the first listing, pay close attention to that. So if you're living in Dundas and Ossington, are you okay dropping 2.7 on a house and trying to find street parking? It's a 4-bed plus 1 4-bath, 30-foot lot. Unbelievable. Now, take a moment to absorb the beauty of this home. Absolutely gorgeous Victorian. Now this was built in, I'm not looking, I'm going to guess, 1890 something. 1890. Okay, that's good. I did write that, but that was a couple days ago. So 1890, I either thought of that or it was in my subconscious. Go on the inside, decked out. Gorgeous house. Now, this is a flipper. They currently have a house on Duncannon. Really great quality. I've seen this name before. Staging's great. It's beautiful. I know this agent. They do really great work. I'm not working for them or anything. I'm just saying I know quality when I see it. At $2.7 million, this is a steal. They paid $2.18 for it in 2021. They have put in this money. They have done the reno. Are you going to find a better Victorian in this area for the low, low price of $2,699? Now, it doesn't have parking, and I get that, and that's the rub, and that might be why it's not selling. But again, I want to talk about detached homes for a moment. When you're looking at this house, irrespective of the parking, is it not enough that it's not detached? Is it not enough just to have that wall shared in between? Does it bother you? Does it really bother you? Because some people say yes, that it does. But then again, I sold a $4.4 million semi-detached house this year. I sold a $3.2 million semi-detached house this year. There are a lot of people who absolutely, can I just go back for a minute? A circle window. Really? When would you ever do that? You would never do that. You did that in 1890. I'm going to sound like an old man here. Back when people really wanted to work, they'd sharpen their pencil. You're not using a pencil for that, right? But you know what I mean metaphorically. The elbow grease and the sweat. Yeah, God. I wonder how I'd do in 1890. My wife reminds me probably not well. So yes, outside you do have a yard. I think this might be turf, either that or it's the best manicured lawn in the heart of the city. Look at the brick, painted. there's something about it. I love the style. It's an occupational hazard. I could live in this. I could live in a cool guy loft. Look at that. Look at this. Unbelievable. I have to wonder. I'm going to show my ignorance here. I've had a client who knows more about architecture of Victorian homes than anybody I've ever met. And if he's watching, I'm going to ask the question, is this the original structure and this was added on? It can't be, because the brick matches perfectly. But if it is, what an incredible job they did. If it's not an addition, how in the world did they build a house like this in 1890? You don't see this. You don't see this type of architecture. I have not seen this in Toronto that I can remember, where you have what looks like an addition. This is your very prototypical 1890s Victorian semi. But the fact that it matches on both sides tells me that, yeah, they did. Very special home in every single way. Man, absolutely beautiful. Yeah, see, this was definitely purpose-built. What a gorgeous house, seriously. And then next door you have what I think is... Anyways, I'll keep my comments to myself. I just don't understand that. Yuck. Okay. So there you go, guys. Rusholme. I love this house. It's a semi. It's just a semi. It's on a 30-foot lot. It's just a semi. Does that bother you, really? Let's look at the next one. I'm passionate today. I can feel it. 437 Euclid. Okay. So now you are into a 4-bed plus 1 6-bath. It's only a 19.5-foot lot. We just came from a 30. That was a wide lot, but you had that side yard. Here, the houses are a lot closer together. I think the houses are going to be a similar size. Make no mistake, this isn't 10.5 feet wider. Now, it does have parking. Big difference there. 126-foot lot. Very pretty from the outside. Just a semi. And I keep saying it, I'm trying to drive my point home. You get inside and you say, okay, my dining's at the front. It's a little narrow. God, I could go up to the lee side and I could get something on a 30-foot lot. Yeah, maybe you could, but you're pushing $3 million there. And it's a very different style. It's going to be a longer house. You're not going to have the high ceilings like this, maybe if it's a newer build, but this is a very classic Victorian. It is very long, and you might say narrow, but you could be in a 13-foot semi on the east side for all I know, and you might be like, that's an embarrassment of riches. Now, I might not have put this built in here because we're talking narrow, and it makes it narrower by about 14, 16 inches. Then you've got the kitchen in the middle. So typically we would call this here our living room at the front, then we would have a dining, and then we would have a kitchen and call it a day. If you're going to put the kitchen in the middle and your dining room is at the front, do you call that a family room? The funny thing about a family room is that it is supposed to be a second living room on the main floor. By definition, or the way I would define it on MLS, which of course makes me correct, is that you need to have 2 sitting rooms on the main floor to call one a living and one a family. What really bothers me is when I see a family room and then there's no living room. Did I make any sense there? Yes. So back here in the family room, right, it is a very nice, cozy spot. Now, walks out to an incredibly small backyard, but you are in the heart of the city of Toronto, just downtown core. You've got a big garage. You've sacrificed your outdoor space for the location. If you want the big backyard, go back to Midtown. So there's a different demographic for this type of house. If you're looking for, and this is a 126-foot lot, don't get me wrong, but if you're looking for that typical 130-foot or even 120-foot lot on the east side with a big football field backyard, it's not this. Because I can tell you that this, from the front to the back, is a lot longer than those typical new builds. Those are just a lot wider because they're on 30 feet. Beautiful. Love this. Why is this not selling? Boy, we're in a tough market, folks. I gotta say, when houses like this are sitting, I know at $3 million, but the one that I just showed you and I said is an incredible deal at 2.7, and they've come down from 3.2 or what have you, and they leased it once. But there's some unbelievable real estate out there. And I know the market's slow. I'm not gonna make this into why everybody should go and buy, but I honestly think 12, 18 months from now, we're gonna look back at this as one of the best buying opportunities of this generation. I mean that. I really do. I said in one of my podcasts, I bought 2 condos last year because, we're at market bottom. And people on YouTube, they're so cruel. And they're like, yeah, you're a genius. You bought 2 condos in the worst condo market ever. I think they're missing the point. I'm not day trading condos. I'm keeping those for 20 years. So in 20 years from now, I'll say, boy, I bought 2 condos in 2024. What was I thinking? Why didn't I buy them in 2025? Doesn't quite work that way. So let's go to Farnham now. Another absolutely gorgeous home. This was built in 1919, and this is an Edwardian semi. So if you don't know where Farnham is, think about where we started on Chicora, okay? Not too far from there. Oh, why did I do this? Let's see. I don't know how to use this MLS one. I should have queued up the map here, guys. Can't complain about MLS or anything to do with Treb, or you might get. Never mind. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to be in the newspaper. So Farnham and Balmoral, 2 absolutely gorgeous streets. Woodlawn as well, beautiful. Does not go all the way through, so you have less traffic. But Farnham and Balmoral If you've ever driven along Avenue and you're trying to get a little bit further east, you've definitely cut across them, or vice versa. If you're trying to get to the West End, all day long, I'm turning off of Yonge and going onto these two streets. Full of semi-detached houses, full of Edwardians, and an incredible area, Summerhill. Look at the size of that. Look at the size. How many feet is this? I'm going to guess. I don't think it's 30. 26. 25. Okay, was close. 25 by 134. 25 by 134, 4 bed plus 1, 3 bath. So it doesn't have that extra bathroom. Look at this. A 6-piece on the third, that's clearly your master ensuite. A 4-piece on the second, that would have been your original bathroom to service this home in 1919. Then you've got a 3-piece in the lower. So if you're playing along at home, and I know you are, they don't have a main floor powder room. Look at that driveway. That is so cool. Wow. Look at that. You rarely see that in houses like this. And then on the inside, beautiful. Thank you. Guys, I want to take you back visually to the first house I showed you on Chicora. All those interior freestanding walls. And I see people want to take them all down. Here's where you've kept some of the walls to leave the original integrity of this home as it was intended in 1919 intact, but you've modernized it. So these here pot lights, no, not modern, right? Furniture, maybe not as much. And honestly, there's a reason that this is only priced the way that it is, because if this was a brand new, not brand new, 1919 built, but gutted in 2025 house, it would be upwards of $4 million. So kitchen in the middle, dining off to the side, very classic. And then you've got a little bump out at the back. Hey, looks like a 1980s sunroom. Yes, with the lights, the skylights to let the light in. Remember the first time you ever saw a skylight? In the 1980s, you went over to a friend's house. God, I'm really dating myself. I was the first one to have a big screen TV. True story. I'm going to date myself here now, guys. By that, I mean I'm taking myself out to dinner. I was the first one to have a big screen TV. It was, no exaggeration, 4 feet thick. I have a photo of it somewhere. It was 4 feet thick. And on top of it was the THX and the receiver and the Jimmy and the flux capacitor and all that stuff. It was like 9 of them upstairs. And one of my friends came over. This is 1992. Why do you have so many VCRs, right? No one knew what the gear was. We had a Laserdisc player. Yeah, we watched Terminator 2 on it. We had THX everywhere. I don't know, my dad was a nut. Not that he was like, I don't want to turn this into therapy session, but not like he was like the ahead of the curve tech savvy guy. I mean, he had someone come in and do it, but kudos to him. He had the first big screen TV with a THX sound system. Okay. Anyway, so I was taking you on a tour of these homes before I went down memory lane, and I'm going to have to talk to a therapist about this later. True story. I wonder though if our kids will have any idea what that looks like. I mentioned the rotary dial phone earlier. Now I'm talking about the 4 foot thick TV. I'm not joking, guys. 4 feet from the wall. That's where the screen was. There was rumors of one day you'll have a TV you can hang on a wall like a piece of art. And it was like, that's such nonsense. That's not true. Okay. I do want to have one final thought while we're sharing. Bill Gates said in 1995 or 1996, one day you won't need a VCR or Laserdisc or CD-ROMs. You'll come home and your TV will know what you want to watch. That was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard anyone say in my entire life. It was the most arrogant, ridiculous fantasy. And it was true. Because now YouTube suggests shows for YouTube, Instagram, right, Netflix. We think you might enjoy this based on your algorithm, your tastes and preferences. It's just amazing. So I kind of skipped through this one, guys, because, well, I'm very verbose. But it's 315. It took me down memory lane. It's a bit dated, hence why I went off on tangents about the 80s and 90s. But it's a fantastic location. It's a fantastic house. It is big. It is spacious. That's the same thing. I like the footprint. I like the fact that it has the parking. I love the curb appeal. But it's dated. It makes us think about back in the day. So I talked over it because I didn't feel the need to give you my commentary. But if you want to be more specific, this looks a little bit more modern, okay? This track light here, 90s, reminds me of Auntie Ellie's and the beaches. This unit here tells me that obviously they haven't redone all of their HVAC. Something like this, you can see the old original radiator, you can see, and I'm not saying a bookshelf makes a house old, but obviously this thing was not completely re-renovated. You can see in the basement, okay, they've done this rather recently, and then this was very important, right? Here's where they've excavated a little bit, so kudos to them. So yes, it's a bit dated, it's a bit hodgepodgey, and there are a lot of different period pieces in here. It's not the full gut reno, but if it was, this street could also support a $4 million home. I mean, this street could support $6 million. But for a property like this in a 25 by 134, yeah, I think that this thing needs some TLC. So you go back to, if I may for a moment, our very first house that we saw on Chicora, 24 by 119, very similar. Didn't take us down memory lane, of course, laser discs, etc. But this is a full gut, and it's 2-3 for 24 by 119. Then we go to Farnham, and you can say, well, David, that's a different location. Yeah, I'd say that people are looking on Farnham or looking on Chicora and vice versa. There's not that big a difference. But here you have similar 25 by 134, 4-bed. Maybe you don't need the 5th. As I said, a lot of these houses originally had 6 bedrooms and you end up turning them into walk-in closets and bathrooms. And this one is renovated, not brand new, needs some updating, but 315. Get into the Victorians, $3 million, fully renovated, right? No parking here, 2.7, fully renovated. And then this was our one in Garnock, different animal altogether, 18.5, 2.4 million. I think that's going to sell for 2.6. So guys, excuse the stories about laser discs, family, old man rather, buying the first big screen TV in Leaside. It was 4 feet thick. It was so cool. I'm gonna have to Google that later or look in the family archives. Mom, if you're watching, send me a photo of that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I had fun, as you can tell. I love looking at real estate sometimes and just going through the pictures and talking and sharing with the camera. And that's what today's was intended to be. There's a lot of fun houses out there. Fun houses, not the weird ones at the carnival that scare your children. No, very fun and exciting houses, especially when we look at semi-detached. And as I noted, I sold a house for $4.4 million that was a semi. I'm not a semi snob. There are a lot of folks out there that have to have detached. Look at what we saw today. Victorian, Edwardian, we're in Riverdale, we're in Little Italy, we're out over on Rusholme, we're on Chicora, we're on Farnham. And we're big money too, character homes. So for you watching this, if you're thinking from the title, substantial semis, I would never buy a semi. I'm above that, or I'm in a 3-bed, 2-bath semi right now. Take that one in Riverdale that's gonna sell for 2.6. And if you're in your $1.3 million semi and you have to have it detached, look at that house, plus that school district, proximity to the park, proximity to Danforth, walking distance to get your bagel and coffee or what have you, and you tell me that that semi is beneath you. I don't think so. Anyways, guys, that is it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. As always, have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.